how are we going to create value if we continue demanding discounts and saying that we're not worth our asking price? Because I'm never going back to where I came from.
Welcome to Purpose, Passion, and Prosperity. Today I'm here with April Richardson. You guys don't know, we're in for a treat. She's a world premiere entrepreneur. She's a world premiere attorney. And she's a world premiere business owner. She owns the DC Sweet Potato Cake. Y'all don't understand. The DC Sweet Potato Cake. It's everywhere. It's probably sitting in your kitchen right now. You don't even know it. But at the end of the day, you'll know when we finish. So let's get started and let's meet April Richardson. Thanks, April.
I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited.
I love the fact that you put me in the world premiere. Now
Absolutely.
I got to live up to it. Because right now I'm in my zip code premiere. I'm going to live up to world.
No, world. Absolutely.
You watch it.
Absolutely. If you don't know, I know.
I love me some Black women. Y'all elevate. And I'm going to levitate.
I receive it.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for coming.
You.
I was just so excited because we connected the first time we smoked,
did.
and so I just couldn't wait for the.
We talked for hours.
Hours, right? Never had the intention. Just went on and on.
And it was at hello, and that's a beautiful thing about
at hello.
You know,
I love it. I love it, Tom.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. So. I don't know if you had a chance to look over the questions, but I'm always going to start with my favorite
I don't even
question.
look at questions.
Oh, great. This is going to be
try
organic.
Not to. I like being able to speak from here. And sometimes when we tend to answer things, we're being a little bit more calculating and not as transparent, you know. So ask me. Just don't ask me too much because then I might have to make it up. And I'm going to tell you if I lie to you, though. I'm like, that's a lie.
Okay. Awesome. So who are you, April Richardson?
Oh my goodness. I should have studied. That question is asked often from me to me.
I love it.
Like, who are you? But here's how I answer the question, right? I am very clear that the journey of life has nothing to do with who I am, but it is who I am becoming, right? So I like to think that each day that I wake up, I get an opportunity to become, right? And I like to say that I become better at yesterday. So no matter what area of life it is, I just become better at yesterday. So when we talk about who am I, I'm just a person that is on a journey to understand life, to build life, to breathe life, to receive life, and just to become better than I was yesterday. Does that make sense?
I love that. But this is what I'm really curious about, because a lot of people don't ask themselves that question.
Yeah.
Who am I? What made you come to that thought that you ask yourself that a lot?
I think it's because so many people are lost right now. And when I say that they are lost, I believe that God has a plan for us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And there's this phrase that says, man plans, God laughs. Right?
Right.
Meaning that, we have all these plans and we write them in our journal and we tell, this is what's going to happen. And God says, that's real cute. But this is really what it is. So because I remain open to the process and everything that I have ever dreamed of for myself has never become a reality, it has always been the thing that I didn't know that was in store for me. And I am open to receiving that. And I think that people are not open to receiving it. They like to wear the t-shirt. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to the practice of being open and ready to receive things, I think that we fall short of that. And primarily because we have changed the way that truth is, right? So I believe that there are universal truths. But now we live in this world where people have their own truth, right? And you'll hear people say, well, my truth is. Mm-hmm. Darling, that's not truth. That's emotion and that's opinion. There are facts. And I think that because I don't like the fact that we are so easily manipulative of ourselves, by ourselves, and to ourselves, I just never wanted to be that person. So I'm real clear about going back to the foundation of where is truth. And the truth is defined by saying, well, who am I? And if I lie to myself, I'm lying to the world. And if I lie to the world, then I'm not living in the purpose that I believe that I was put here to live in, which is to be a truth seeker, a knowledge seeker, and then to do something with it. Does that make sense?
It makes great sense.
Yeah.
And being a truth seeker, as you put it,
Yeah.
what happens to there's so many people around us that have no concept of what truth is.
Yeah.
So how does that work for you?
Yeah.
Because those people, when you cross those people paths.
Yeah. Because I don't believe in the premise that they don't know. They do know. So that's that lawyer in me, right? So I think that we are so fast to let people off the hook by saying that they're not smart enough. We are some smart people, and we know. And we know because, number one, we are with ourselves every day. And at night when we hit that pillow, we have to sleep with ourselves. We know what the truth is. It's just that we are just okay with being mediocre, right? And when you're okay with being mediocre, that means that you will allow people to give you the excuse that you don't know. You know. That's one thing about our people, is that innately, we are divine. And with divinity comes an understood truth, right? Mm-hmm. So when we start to acknowledge that, yeah, I'm lying to myself. and we lie to ourselves in crazy ways, right? I was out at brunch today with a good friend of mine. Shout out to my best friend, Shantice.
Shout out.
For taking me to a very expensive brunch. And I was telling her about this woman when there was this deal that I was in the process of getting. And we were on a conference call, and we had a whole bunch of community stakeholders, asking questions about, the deal. And the questions that they asked could make or break the deal, right? And we're already at the finish line. And there was this one lady who looked like me, skin tone like me. And she's asking all questions that are outside of the scope in order to kind of tear the project down. When I finally got a chance to meet her, she had on one of those T-shirts, that talk about Black girl magic.
Right.
And it was so irritating to me because I was like, number one, you are not magic. That's a statement. But what you are is part of a recipe that could create magic. It's the potion. And baby, you have a poison pill that you're putting in the potion, so it's not magic, right? It's witchcraft.
I like that. It's witchcraft.
Girl, give me that shirt, right? So those are the things that, I understand that we can be better at. When I say we, I'm not sure who your audience base is, but I'm talking to the we who understands who the we are.
I received that because everybody is not our we.
No.
and everybody doesn't understand, like the lady who is doing witchcraft.
Yeah, right. But for me, like when I work with people, just in the legal world or in the bakery world or just in the business development world, I used to be that person. I want to help everybody. I mean, you know what it's like when you're young and dumb, and then you realize I am pouring into a cup that has a hole in it. So everything that I'm feeding is pouring out. So then, as I got older, I decided that I am only going to help people whose hands are raised, because it's too much for me to put my hand down in that barrel, because I don't like getting bit. And
I receive it.
So I started this journey of only helping people who are ready to do the work. And that means that they have a certain level of awareness about themselves, right? Because literally, I try to surround myself with people who can see when I'm not living in my truth so that they can check me. Because it's so easy to fall into falsities. I'm very clear on that. And I live in falsities all the time. Especially when it comes to fashion, I be thinking I'm doing it. And here come my son, that's a check. We doing that today.
Does he says that really?
He's a hater. Yeah. But he's honest, right? And then when I look back at the picture, I'm like, ooh. He's just like, told you so. Right? So it's not always like a truth that is so deep. It's just for people to be able to trust you with knowing that they see you. Right? Does that make sense? And I surround myself with people who can see me and see through me and see for me.
Say it again.
See me, see through me, see for me.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about you becoming an attorney. What made you decide that you wanted to become an attorney?
I have no idea. I went to I went to University of Maryland Eastern Shore,
Okay.
HBCU. And when I was there, I'm a creative and my hands are in everything, and I'm a Baltimore girl. So I remember, because I'm a creative at the time, I was like, class president. I'm just that girl, right? I've given all the fashion shows and then turn around doing debates. I'm just that girl. And then I'm taking a weight training class. I'm always doing something that just does not add up.
Right.
And I remember graduating, they were like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Says, I want to do everything. What do you mean I do? You got to choose. Your degree says English and political science. I said, but that was just for the record, right? The record cannot be what my purpose is. So I started thinking, I went to the library, and this is before everything was computerized.
Oh, yeah, right. I understand.
I had to go through books, and I wanted to be in a profession that touches everything. And I remember reading something that said the law touches everything. And I was like, the law touches everything. I'm going to be a lawyer. Never met one, never heard of one.
Right.
But when I was a little girl, I will say this is how kind of God plants seeds. I was a little girl living in Baltimore City on Gwynns Falls Parkway. Shout out to Mondawmin Mall. And my grandma used to call me News Channel 2. She would get off from the bus, and I would tell her exactly what happened while she was gone. Grandma, they were smoking. Grandma Aunt Roxanne had this boy over, right?
You would
and
tell
she was
her
like,
everything.
oh, for real? Oh, Lord. She's Miss Channel 2. And I remember my family found out that I was snitching because they couldn't figure out how they knew.
Right.
And my aunt was like, when she go to work, we going to tear you up. And there used to be this commercial that used to come on television, and it still comes on TV. And it said, Science and Kirk. When you have a phone, you have a lawyer.
Yes.
And when they chased me, I stood next to that phone and said, I'm going to call my lawyer.
No, you didn't, April.
They backed up.
You were calling Science.
I was calling Science. And I remember saying, wow, I want to be able to do that when I grow up, call a lawyer.
Right.
So that kind of planted the seed, but I had never met one before.
Right.
Never met a lawyer, never understood what they did, but I knew that the practice of law touches everything. So no matter what it is that I wanted to do, there was a need for a lawyer. I took the LSATs when I was in undergrad. They were terrible. And I was like, well, I guess that's it. And then I took an internship at Social Security Administration, and I was with the negotiation unit. And it happened to be all lawyers. And I remember the woman that ran the Social Security Administration negotiation unit, I asked her if I could sit in on a meeting with her and her team, and she said no.
Why?
Who knows? I don't know why she said no, but look at me now, girl. So she said no, but I talked my way into her meeting. And she was the type of woman that they feared her. And when she would talk to her team, she would always have her back, turned toward her team whenever they would talk in her office. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm standing here. Can you turn around and look at me, please? And she whipped around in that chair, and I was like, but your wig's crooked. Right?
You didn't do this, April.
No, I did. Because I come from Linda, my mama's child. She was always adjusting somebody's wig in church, so I thought it was normal. And I remember talking my way into one of her meetings. But remember, my job at the time was an intern. I had to photocopy all of the books for the summer. And there are about 2,000 books, and each book had at least 1,000 pages in it. And that was my job. They needed a second copy of their books for the summer. And I remember reading those books. And when I snuck myself into her meeting and she asked her team a question and they couldn't answer it, I raised my hand. And she said, I told you that if I let you in this meeting, you're not to say nothing. I said, I understand, but I know the answer. I'll be right back. And I grabbed it and I gave it to her. And I said, it's right there. And she goes, and they couldn't give me the answer. Right? I said, they couldn't give you the answer, girl. So can I come to the next meeting? No. But so what? And it was at that moment when she saw a talent in me that I didn't understand what that talent was. And the next day I get called into her office, and she was like, you need to go to law school. And here's one, apply here. They will get you in. My LSAT scores are bad. She said, they don't care. And I applied, and 2 weeks later, I was admitted to this law school out in Michigan called Thomas Cooley Law School, where they take students with lower LSAT scores. And 3 weeks later, I was in Michigan in law school because of this woman.
The same one said, don't come into my meeting.
Yeah. She understood what she was
Yes.
up against. I didn't. I was just like, right. And she understood without having to tell me, but because I was a kid that believed that my steps were ordered, I was like, okay, that's what she said. This must be where I'm supposed to go. And I went to law school at in Michigan, and I transferred to GW 3 weeks later, and I transferred to GW Law School, and that was a law school that only takes the best and the brightest
Right.
kids with the highest LSAT scores. But one thing I said when I got into law school with those low LSAT scores and those mediocre grades, I said, and this was one of the lowest ranking law schools in the U.S., although it was the toughest one with the best professors because, it's all political. I said, I'm going to work my butt off here because I'm never going back to where I came from.
Gotcha.
And I was able to transfer to a higher tier school. And then I created a career in Washington, D.C., that just became a pretty cool career in white collar crimes, frauds. That's how I did it. And the whole time that I'm, putting myself through law school, I just thought, when I get in the position, I have to take other people along with me. I'm not sure how, but they're going to come along with me. And I set out with that mission.
That's a beautiful story. I really can appreciate that.
Yeah.
And so you fought white collar crime. I'm sure that was interesting. I'm sure you have some
Lord
stories to tell us
Jesus.
about that.
My career was just a little different in law, right? Because I didn't fit the bill for the corporate law firms. Even though I had the experience and the grades, the time came when the big law firms would come to the schools and I would inevitably get a no, right? Because I was still rocking this fro. I'm sure that had something. I was like, I'm not wearing that suit. I got to wear my dress. I'm sure all of that had to,
Just a
play
little
with it.
bit.
But I didn't want to be there anyway,
Right.
I was like, that's not me. I am a child from the earth, and I just want to twirl my way into the sun while being the smartest person in the room without you ever even acknowledging it. And at the time, there was something happening in the real estate market, and I wanted to be in real estate. And I went back to GW and said, listen, I want to be in real estate. And they were like, well, kind of hard to get in with no experience. Maybe you should go to the big law firms. I don't want to go there. And they found this little rinky-dink job for me working as a foreclosure lawyer in Bethesda right before the market crashed.
Got you.
And when I worked at that foreclosure law firm, I saw things that affected people that look like me. We were foreclosing on homes left and right. And this is before foreclosures became sexy. And I remember when I had to foreclose, the partner of the firm said, when people call here, homeowners call here, your job is to foreclose and not to ask people why they were in foreclosure. Because once you ask, then you are going to feel bad for them and you're not going to want to do your job. Well, you can't tell me that. That's not happening. I'm going to ask the question, because by asking the question, their answers may help me understand if they have options, right? Or if this is something temporary, or if we're doing something wrong. And I remember being assigned to Washington Mutual, and I hated that bank.
Oh my God, not
hated it.
Washington
They
Mutual.
would never stop a foreclosure in certain zip codes, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I
And
do.
I hated it. And because it, conflict of interest, fiduciary duties,
Right.
I can't tell homeowners what to do, but I can tell them that they have rights, and I can tell them where they can learn about their rights. And I took all of that information, and this is in 2002. I took all of the information in terms of who was being foreclosed, and I took it to all of the organizations that represent Black people. And I said, this is what's happening. But because I was a first-year lawyer,
Right.
they didn't listen to me. I didn't understand that home ownership was something big, and all of these organizations were getting all this money to put into Black communities. But I'm like, but it's not right. These loans aren't right. They're taking their homes without even allowing them to file bankruptcy or to do a forbearance. And I couldn't take it anymore. So I stayed there and I studied with the vow that when I leave here, I'm going to go and fight against these guys. And that's exactly what I did. I studied for that entire year. I had my son. I had to leave work, go home and nurse him. The job was in Bethesda. I lived in Landover during break. I'm running home, trying to nurse my son and trying to save the world quietly. And then when it was time for me to go, I had an arsenal of information and I was ready, a second-year lawyer. I said, listen, I'll take them on. Bring it. And at that time, I said, well, before I bring it, sound real cool. I don't know enough. So I was like, well, what else do I need to know before I bring it?
Right.
And it was like, okay, you need to know how titles work. And I worked for a title company. You need to know how developers work for got it. And I created what I didn't understand was going to be something that was so impactful in the market. I created a real estate fraud prosecution expertise, right? I didn't know. I just knew it was wrong. And then one day in 2008, I got a call from Governor O'Malley's office asking if I would create a mortgage fraud prosecution unit within the state's attorney's office in Prince George's County. And because, again, I believe that my steps are ordered, I follow the Lloyd Yellow Brick Road. I said, sounds cool to me. Let's do it.
Right.
And here I am, an army of 1 and 2, trying to take on fraud. And at the time, Maryland was ranked 3rd in the nation for mortgage fraud. 3rd in the nation. Florida was above us and California was above us. And out of the counties in Maryland, Prince George's County was number 1.
Ironically.
All these beautiful Black people living in these fantastic homes. Homes are going into foreclosure. A percentage of them were fraudulent, and the homeowners were not the ones involved in the fraud. They were the victims. But that job taught me so much. It taught me about wealth. It taught me how fast you can lose things. It taught me how we value materialism, how we value a house with walls over just our own economic strength. It taught me so much. It taught me what I didn't want to be as a Black woman. Does that make sense?
Makes great
so
sense.
Through their tragedy, I became stronger in terms of the way that I understood how I wanted to show up in the world, right? And I remember the victims. I remember them vividly. But what I do remember about them was that although I was prosecuting fraud, I mean, my little unit was a best practice by DOJ. I got a chance to train Secret Service agents and FBI agents in real estate fraud. This little girl from Baltimore. Why? Not because she isn't capable of it. It's just because I just happen to be from Baltimore, right? Smart as a mug. But what came of it was something beautiful. What came of that work was me getting an opportunity to work with entrepreneurs. Because at the time, the majority of the people that were having these crazy loans were entrepreneurs, so they had to state their income. And during the day, they were victims, and then they were majority Black men in this county and other counties, and they put their head in the sand. They were so embarrassed that they were losing their homes. They were so embarrassed that they signed documents that they didn't understand, that they wouldn't run their companies anymore. So I'm like, bro, you're worried about a house and you have a whole business and a family, and because you might have to move, you just put your head in the sand. We can't do that. So during the day, they were victims, and then at night, I started helping those business owners turn their companies around. I would pick up my son from school, set him up at the library across the street from the courthouse, and then I would meet those victims and help plan and strategize how they were going to turn their companies around, day in and day out. And it was a secret practice that I was doing outside of the permission of the state's attorney's office. Sorry, Glenn. He was the state's attorney at the time. And it was just beautiful. But at that time, something really cool happened. There was a bakery that came to me. Right? And everyone's, you got to help this bakery. And I said, not another one. I don't know anything about a bakery. And it was something about this company that I decided to help them. The owner of the bakery, his name is Derek, he had a mother who had died from lupus. My mom has been struggling with lupus my entire life. And that right there was another message that this is where I'm supposed to be. I think that was probably in 2009. And I've been with the company ever since. I decided that this company is worth more than just me being the lawyer for. It was worth my time in terms of growing it and joining the company and creating something that was more than just a mom and pop bakery, right? That's how law started to impact my life differently, because I know that I was always going to be an entrepreneur, but not an entrepreneur that would have an impact and a journey that would lead me, through all of these different mazes, but it all added up to one thing, which was purpose. And that's how we operate.
That's just awesome, April.
It's something.
All the people that you've helped.
Yeah.
That is just awesome.
Yeah.
Because you live in the flow.
Yeah.
You just follow the signs.
Yeah. And I don't, and it's really easy for me because I think, you know how like you get certain gifts. I can sing really well. I can. My whole family can sing. But then there are other gifts that you can't really, that you don't share. They're just innate. And I think I have just the gift of discernment. I know when I'm supposed to help. And that is only because in order for me to be successful, there are dozens of other people that are supporting me to allow me to help someone else. So if it's weren't for all these cheerleaders behind me, nothing that I do would ever get done. I'm very clear on that. It has never been a one-woman show. It has been me at the front and all these people holding me up 100%. And it's not holding me up in the sense in terms of, ooh, I can write you a check, or ooh, go. It's the people that are saying, you got this. They throw me back in the ring. They bandage me up. And girl, that eye is black, honey, but put this ice patch on it. Get back in the ring. They hold me accountable. And it still happens to this day.
So, the bakery.
Yeah.
Tell us about how you came up with DC sweet potato.
So at the time that the bakery came to me, the bakery was facing an eviction. And I was just like, okay, I can solve this issue. I got it. Now, keep in mind, I was raising my son on my own. And I remember my son was always the last kid that got picked up on the playground. And when you say it that way, it sounds so sad. But he was so happy that he got picked up late because he always got a treat. So he was like, Mom, please come late. And I would write the $20 for picking him up from late. I was like, oh, dear God, my child, wait till he grows up. He's going to be on somebody's therapy couch. My mama never loved me. We'll work it out. So when the bakery came to me, they were just in such dire straits. And I said, okay, I know how to fix this. So I spent hundreds of hours, just volunteering as a lawyer. And then there was one time when the owner of the building was like, that's it, they got to go. And she was on a train heading to New York. And I called her up. I said, I'm sorry, I can turn this company around. Just give me a minute. And she goes, well, how are you going to do that? So I said, X, Y, and Z. Well, who are you? I said, I'm April. But you could look me up. Like I'm vetted. AKA Google me, girl, right? But you can't say that because you come in, right? And she goes, you know what? I'll give you a chance, but you need to be in my office when I come back from New York. So I said, okay, fine. Where do you live? Potomac, figures. So my business partner, my client at the time, Derek and I, we going up to Bethesda and we sit down at the table with her in Potomac, rather. And she goes, I'll stop the eviction under one condition. You need to come with the company. I said, huh? She said, you need to own the company, the majority of the company. You need to own it because I've given them an opportunity. And the only way that I would feel comfortable is unless you have the final word. And I was like, but I'm trying to save the world from foreclosures. I got a son that I got to bribe every day. I'm writing $20 checks for pickup. And you want me to take on them? And I remember Derek saying, please. I said, okay, girl. And the first thing that I had to do was get a grip on the company. Because when you're coming into the company as a lawyer versus an owner, it's two different things. You got to do it my way or the highway. And I remember lining everybody up saying, listen, I'm going to come on as the owner, but I need a yes from everybody. And I got a yes, I got a yes, I got a yes. And then one of the people was like, well, I have a question. I said, well, you're fired. So what's the problem? Let's get this party started. You got to go anyway. So your vote doesn't count. And from then to now, it is still the same process. It is literally a roller coaster ride. The difference is that the stakes are bigger now, because at the time when I took over the bakery, I was like, I mean, we're a mom and pop, we're cute and all. It's called Delectable Cakery, but we have a bad reputation in the industry. Our products are always not on time. The product is amazing. We always have an excuse for why we're not delivering. We forgot somebody's order. We need a brand change. We have to do this. So I said, so the first year, we're not going to focus on profits. We're going to focus on keeping clients. right? We gave away so much product, but we needed a brand, we needed a shift. So I had to establish a mission for the organization and core values, right? And I thought about, what is the mission? What are our core values? I just couldn't really wrap ourselves around it, because if you are going to come into a company, that means it has a culture. And I had to figure out, how do you break a culture without breaking hearts and spirits? Answer is, you can't. So I had to break up the souls, right? And I had to get them adjusted or used to doing business in a way that meant that we could see profit. And for tiny businesses, that's upsetting, right? But at the time, I'm like, it's upsetting, but we either going to do this or we're not. And I said, and we're not going to be a mom and pop. The statistics say for bakeries that are mom and pops, the average revenue is $200,000. We're doing $75,000 a year. But look at this statistic. It says if you are a manufacturer of baked goods, your average revenue is $1 million plus. And look at this statistic. There are hardly no women in manufacturing. And look at this statistic. Ain't no black people in we're going into manufacturing, y'all. Well, what does that mean? I don't know, but we're going to figure it out. Google it.
Google it.
Because Google was hot back then. Remember people used to say, Google me?
Yeah.
Right? I will Google information. And from Google, I learned how to build a manufacturing facility. But I was like, okay, I know how to build it, but we don't have any clients. And I remember I said, well, if we're gonna do this, we got to go big. And at the time, we had our little cute Nordstrom contract. We in a little Nordstrom cafes. I mean, we hair tossing. You can buy stuff from Nordstrom. But that wasn't much, right? That was included in the $75,000. So I was like, I need something big. And I remember saying, I need it really big, but I'm just not quite sure what to do. It'll come to me. Don't worry. Oh, how you going to think about it? What you going to do? You going to go research it? No. It's just going to come to me. Just keep going. Just keep walking, because the steps are ordered. And I remember walking into Starbucks. I was working for the FDIC at the time in their financial crimes unit. And I had to go all over the U.S., like helping with failed financial institutions, which, by the way, I was assigned during the crisis, all the banks were being closed. I was recruited by the FDIC's financial crimes unit. And when I walked into the office, they said, the first bank that we are going to give to you is Washington Mutual.
He was going to say.
I said, give it that.
My pleasure.
I did the Chick-fil-A, my pleasure, right? I get to be part of this investigation for the people that disenfranchise all of these African Americans and these zip codes. Let's have it, because I got some inside anger, right? So I spent years. Look at that. Full circle.
Yes.
I was just like, I know some names that we can look at cases. And these are cases that I had like 6-7 years ago, right? And guess what? The information was still good. So that was beautiful. But when I was working at the FDIC, I was shadow working. I was a lawyer by day and then a baker at night. And I kept my business quiet. No one at the FDIC knew that I owned this company until we started getting bigger. And I remember the day I was working from home. And I'm a Starbucks working kind of girl. I would go in and buy the same thing, the pound cake, lemon pound cake, and a cup of coffee. And I walked up, this is over in New Carrollton, and I walked up to the register, and I was about to order, and I looked at the bakery case and said, that donut is just stale. Why don't they move that donut to the left and move that lemon pound cake to the right, and they could put the DC sweet potato cake right there. And then I said, ma'am, how do you get into Starbucks? She was like, I don't know, ma'am. You want coffee or not? I said, I'll take a cup of coffee. You want some cake? No, I don't want their cake. So now it's no good for me. So I sat down.
It came to you.
I don't want that cake anymore. So I sat down at that moment and I said, I'm going to get my products in Starbucks. And instead of focusing on the hour lunch break that I had, I just started Googling how to get products in Starbucks. How do you contact Starbucks? And I'm calling supplier diversity. I'm calling supplier no, and no. And I said, I hate when people tell me no and they don't understand vision. I bet you if I found the owner or CEO of Starbucks and he understands what I mean, he would say, yeah. How do I find him? Google, who is the CEO? A man named Howard Schultz. Howard Schultz. Okay, got it. Call Starbucks. Can you give me his email address? No, we cannot. Can you give me his phone number? No, ma'am. Is this the same lady calling? Yes. Right? So I said, usually people stop at that. but that's not me. I knew that I was put at that Starbucks location. I had that vision for a reason, so I had to let it play out. Called my boss that day and said, I'm going to be late to work logging in. He said, okay, how much you need, Richardson? About an hour. I said, okay. So that hour, I figured out how to send Howard Schultz an email. I found old emails from Starbucks employees, and I sent Howard Schultz a combination of different emails. And I was smart enough to say, this man probably gets a whole lot of emails, but it's all going to be about that subject line that's going to get his attention. Right. And because he's a man, they are very curious. So I have to be very careful and very clear and smart about what goes in that subject line. So it said, this is a long shot. That's what it said. And then the email commenced to tell him, my name is April. I own the fastest growing bakery in DC. We're called DC Sweet Potato Cake. It will make sense for you to do business with a local company. Wonk, 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 wonk. Click send. Okay, now I can get back to work. Found the man. The rest is in the universe. Probably 2 hours later, I get an email back from Howard Schultz. Would love to try your cake. Excuse me, what? But the 1-800 Starbucks people said no. And I remember he had his executive assistant named Nancy on the email and someone else. And they were like, we would love to try the cake. You can send it to Seattle, Washington. And at that moment, I was like, we don't know how to send no cake to Seattle. We never send no cake in the mail. And I called my sister. I said, you won't believe this. She said, what? I said, figure out how to get a cake. I mean, we're looking at everything. We're looking at dry ice, shipping. Oh, no. I had just paid my mortgage. I had just paid my son's tuition. And I had a couple $100 left in my account. Because now my money's going to a bakery that I didn't ask for. And I said, I'm going to fly out to Seattle, Washington.
I knew you were going to say
and
that.
I'm going to take them this cake.
I knew you were going to say
I looked at the flight, $768 was the round trip ticket with a $300 bank account. And I booked a one-way flight to Seattle, Washington with the cakes in hand. I said, if we going to get this deal, it's going to be the most perfect product that this man has ever had. But there was a flaw in the system. I didn't know how I was going to get back home, and I had no hotel. I'll figure it out.
Right.
I had to figure it out. And when I booked the flight, I told my sister, I said, listen, a long shot is a long shot.
Right.
Y'all figure out how to get me back. Make sure I get back, because I'm going to say, I don't know them people out there. I'm not sure if they black friendly. I'm not sure. However, I'm going to make this flight. And I remember the day that I went to the airport, the flight was delayed by 5 hours. And I had perfectly made product. And I said, this stuff needs to be refrigerated. What am I going to do? And I remember walking up, because, in BWI, they have restaurants. I was like, oh, if I can convince somebody to let me put it in the refrigerator, I got it. Walked up to the lady and said, I'm sorry, can you put this in your refrigerator? She was like, yeah, let me check with the chefs. I said, please do. And she came, she was like, he said no. I said, well, tell him it's from a commercial kitchen. She was like, he's just being a jerk today. I'm so sorry. What am I supposed to do? So then I saw a Starbucks. And I said, here we go. Put them shoulders back, adjusted that bra, walked over to the side. I said, excuse me, who's the manager? And the guy said, I am. I said, I have a flight. It's delayed to Seattle, Washington. These are for Howard Schultz. Please put this in the refrigerator and I'll be back to get it. And he goes, oh, yes, ma'am. No problem. And then I walked away like, did this just work? Oh, it worked. Remember, what was that? Waiting to exhale when she said, "Oh, he looking at me." It was one of those moments. I said, "Okay, that worked." And I sat down on the floor, and I was just cracking up. I said, "You just be doing too much, girl." I said, "Well, it's a long shot," because I believe that most of us, we love when people tell us no, or we love to create a story that people are going to tell us no based on our race and our gender, so that we don't have to do the hard work. You have to tell me no before I create a narrative that it's a real no. Because most of the stuff that we have, these things that we say are stopping us, it's really us and a narrative that we've created
in our head.
Because the Harriets and the Martins and all of them, they got the no's too. But for some reason, they pressed on. So I don't believe in a quick, abort. No, sir. You're going to have to back me out. I'm a Baltimore girl. We built a little bit different. And sometimes I carry my gold tooth in my purse if I got to get real physical with it. And I was ready. I was going to jump across the counter at Starbucks. So you putting these in there today. I didn't have to do that. I kept my lady. And I remember boarding the flight, waiting for the flight to board. And this lady walked up to me and she goes, I love your hair. I said, thank you so much. And she's just having such a hard time. And she's with all of these girls. And there's a point here. And I said, are they getting on your nerves? She was like, yes, it's my daughter's field hockey team. They're so annoying. Our flight's delayed. And I said, yeah, my flight's late too. And she goes, really? She goes, I saw you walking. I'm going over to the Starbucks to check. Is everything okay? So I said, oh, yeah. And she goes, what's your name? I said, I'm April. So she goes, okay, April, I'm so-and-so. We're talking. And then I said, I know a little bit about hockey. So she goes, do you? I said, I played ice hockey. Mm-hmm. So she said, wait, what? I said, yeah, I played ice hockey. So she goes, you played ice hockey? I said, I did, with all boys. Where? In Baltimore? Oh, yeah. Where are you going? Seattle, Washington. What are you going to go do in Seattle? So I told her the story. Mm-hmm. I said, you want to hear something funny? So she goes, yeah. She goes, how are you going to get back? I don't know. Do you have an appointment? No, I don't. So she goes, hold on. Let me do you a favor. She pulls out her cell phone. She gets on the phone. And she's talking. She goes, oh, she didn't pick up. And she's talking into the voicemail. She goes, what's your full name? I said, I'm April. And she goes, so-and-so, I have April here. She's trying to get into Starbucks. Can you make sure that she gets into Starbucks? Because she has to do something. And what's your phone number? Gave her my phone. What's your email? Gave her email. I said, well, who's that? She goes, oh, my good friend is the general counsel for Starbucks. I said, what? She said, she's general counsel for Starbucks. She'll get you in. I said, thank you so much. Get my cake, get on a flight. And I'm not going to belabor you with the details, but it was an empty flight. And there was no one else on the plane, probably me and maybe about 40 people on the 757. And this kid comes to sit next to me. I'm sitting by the window and he comes to sit directly next to me in the middle seat. And you know how you look around like, is this real? Like,
all these seats.
All these seats. You know, and he was short. I'm 6 feet tall. So this is not going anywhere at all. So then he is sitting. I'm looking out the window, irritated. And he goes, so where are you going? I said, the flight says Seattle.
You did.
The flight says Seattle, Washington. He was like, oh, yeah, what's there? I said, Seattle is there. So he goes, oh, yeah, my name is Josh. Hi, Josh. I said, hey, Josh. You know it's an empty flight. He was like, yeah, I saw you out there. I thought you know, good looking. Thank you, Josh. But there's extra seats right there, Josh. You could talk to me. No, it's okay. I'm fine. If you're fine, I'm not fine, Josh. He goes, well, what do you do for a living? I'm a lawyer, Josh. Oh, for real? I'm a lawyer too. Really? He's like, yeah. So he goes, where'd you go to school? I said, Josh, you're not going to make this easy, are you? He was like, I mean, you know, we're stuck on a flight. How about this? We talk little, then I'll move over. I said, oh, okay, cool. So he goes, where'd you go to school? I said, I went to GW. He goes, I went to GW. I said, really? He goes, when'd you come out? I said, '02. He said, I came out in '02. I said, really? He goes, yeah. I said, I transferred in. He said, I transferred in. I said, are you serious? He was like, I don't remember you. I said, how could you not remember me? It's like only 5 black kids there and you're the white guy. I'm the minority. He was like, I would have remembered you. I said, really? He goes, I would have remembered you. I don't remember you. What do you do, Josh? He goes, oh, I do venture capital and financing and funding for startups. I said, really? So he goes, I said, well, how do you do? So we have this wonderful conversation. And then he finally learns that I'm heading to Starbucks to deliver cake. And then he pulled out his notebook and he goes, okay, after you get this deal, let me show you how to finance it. Because if you're going into Starbucks, they're going to want to see capital. And we are literally on the plane for 4 hours mapping out financial projections for Starbucks. Me and Josh, my little teeny boyfriend.
The one who you didn't want to sit by you.
Yes. Again.
Right. I'm with you.
So when I finally get there, I get in an Uber and Josh carried the cakes for me to the Uber. And he goes, where are you staying? I said, I don't have a place to stay. Oh, you can stay with me? No, sir. I'd rather tuck it up in the alley and prop my back against the wall. No, sir, Josh. You look like you're handsy. No. So I get in and I remember getting in an Uber and the Uber said, where are you going? And I said, I'm not sure, but I think you should take me downtown. And he goes, huh? So I said, I'm going to find a hotel. I didn't have any money left. So I found an old Groupon and it was an expired Groupon. And I said, ooh, take me here. So he drops me off at this hotel, and he said, if you have a problem, just give me a call. We'll figure something out for you. And I walked into the hotel, and I said, I'm sorry, I have this old Groupon. Can you honor it? And I could afford the room. So she goes, it's expired. I said, I know, but let me tell you why I'm here. And I tell her. And she goes, are you serious? Where are the cakes? I said, right here.
Right.
She goes, do you know that this is an old apartment building, and we have 4 refrigerators in here? I said, oh my God. She goes, yeah, and I'll put some in the freezer. And I said, thank you. And she let me in on an expired Groupon. I can't make this up.
No, you
can't. And when I got into the room, it was 4:00, and I sent an email to Starbucks and said, I know you're expecting UPS, but you get me instead. And at 4:30, someone said, wait, you came from DC to Starbucks to hand deliver the cakes? I said, I did. And he said, can you stay for another day? I'm going to come from New York to meet you. I ain't got no money to stay another day. I don't even know how I'm going to get home. Absolutely. And when I left the hotel room, when I was walking out, there was a black janitor. He goes, hey, you're the cake lady. I said, yeah. He goes, I heard about it. She told me it was awesome. I said, I got one for you. Well, he was like, yeah, when are you going home? I said, well, they asked me to say, how are you going to stay? I was like, I have no idea. He was like, I got a discount. You can use it, friends and family. I said, are you serious? He was like, yeah, just come back. We'll hook it up. Thank you for that. I had people sending me money. And when I got to Starbucks, it was surreal. They were waiting for me. They knew who I was. They knew what I did for a living in terms of prosecution.
Right.
And if it wasn't for Nancy, who was Howard Schultz's assistant, I don't know what I would have done. So when I came out of the elevator, she came down to get the cakes, and I said, hey, Nancy. She goes, you don't look like a baker. Nothing like I thought. I said, did you expect an apron? I got one, but it's not for really baking. So she and I laughed, and I said, I put something special in the bag for you. And she said, oh, no. You didn't have to do that because we're having your cake today at our meeting this evening. I said, what do you mean? She said, we heard about what you did, and we're having your cake today. We're all going to try it. I said, are you serious? I said, do you normally sit next to Mr. Schultz? She said, call him Howard. I said, do you normally sit next to Mr. Schultz? So she said, I do. I said, can you do one thing for me? She goes, what's that? I said, I bequeath you head of marketing for DC Sweet Potato Cake. I need you to take one bite and say really loud, wow, this is amazing. She got to say it so everybody can hear. She said, you got this. And then the next day when I came into Starbucks Corporation, they all knew who I was. They were like, this is the lady that sent the email. Because what I didn't understand is that was part of the values of Starbucks, right? Taking a chance and being ready for the yes. And when I had a chance to sit down and talk with Howard, I was really clear. I said, listen, all of DC wants to know what's going to happen, so make it good. And he couldn't wrap his head around the fact that this was made from sweet potatoes. And I left that meeting with one promise. We'll try the product. It won't be forever. So take this opportunity and magnify it. Okay. And by the time, and here's the beautiful part, by the time I got home, maybe on a Wednesday, on a Friday, Starbucks had flown out to our location. Listen, all of our ovens were broken. We had one working rack and an oven. So we lit, before the lady came, we had to light pumpkin scented candles to make it smell like we were baking. Starbucks has never heard this story. Shout out to Starbucks. We had all these pumpkin candles lit to make it smell like it was sweet potato cake. And I said, this is what we're going to do. As she's walking in the door, you're going to take cakes out. And they were going to say, oh, yeah, they're gone for today. We're ready. And I said, put a little in your hair, some flowers, something. And the lady that came, she was incredible. She didn't care anything about the cake. She wanted to know about the story. How did it happen? Take me to the Starbucks where you had the vision to send Howard an email. That's all she cared about, was the storytelling part. And she gave me some beautiful advice. But on the way, when I left Howard's office, he said, what is the mission of your company? You have to have a mission with core values. How are you going to lead your company and you don't have a mission statement? And on the plane home, I wrote my mission statement. And our mission statement to this day is, it's simple. We bake, we love, we inspire. And the word "it's simple" was really important for me because our ingredients are simple. Our processes are simple. If things are complicated, it is not for you, because that's the way that I live my life. It's just simple. Just walk, be open, and things kind of just blossom. And we were able to use that Starbucks contract in order and to pivot into more Wegmans, into Safeways, into Albertsons, onto QVC, right? Not because we're the best in the industry. It's because we were open to those opportunities. And I say all of that to say that while I was working for the feds, I was raising my son. I was taking care of business owners for free. And I was creating a baked goods manufacturing company. All this in 24 hours. And it wasn't easy at all. But if it wasn't for the senior citizens, each time in my life when I'm about to do something kind of interesting or cool, a senior citizen shows up. She's always about 80 years old, and she shows up to remind me that it's my obligation to show up each time. And that is what I'm always looking for. I'm always waiting for the wisdom to pop in to say, you're on the right path, right? But then, when you're at that level of visibility, people want to put you on a pedestal. And that's the part that bothers me, because it bothers me because we are business people. I love the fact that people celebrate us versus celebrating an athlete or, an entertainer. I love the fact that people celebrate entrepreneurs, but in their celebration, they create storylines that aren't true. You guys are killing it. No, ma'am, we're barely surviving, right? Y'all a $1 million company. It's what we make, but it's not what we keep.
It's not the bottom
right?
line.
So because I always talk about it in that way, I do that so that people can remain can remain grounded in what their expectation is in being in business. Because now we're in this world where everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and you have to ask why. Right? Because it's been glamorized. It ain't pretty.
No,
we're the
it's
ones
not.
that don't sleep at night, right? We're the ones that have to worry about how are we going to pay, make payroll, even though I was on the news last night. It's never a pretty thing. However, if it's the lifestyle that you choose, it means that it's something that is in you that makes you crazy. Because you can't be sane saying, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna work for myself." You can't be sane saying, "Oh yeah, I'll put my credit up." You can't be saying I'm not sure how I'm gonna pay my payroll. You can't be sane, right? So it's a certain level of edgy and crazy that goes into wanting to be an entrepreneur.
Well, April, the thought as I listen to these stories you've told me, there's one running theme underneath it all, is that you just walked out on faith in every single thing.
100%.
And God just start dropping people.
Yeah.
Right? You just start having conversations. They just happen. Right. It's just
magical.
Crazy.
It's magical and it's crazy. And if I didn't have witnesses to it, you think I was crazy. But it's magical. But I don't always listen. I don't. Sometimes I'll be tired. I'll be like, I need to put on some sunglasses and ignore what I see. And normally when I do that, it is obvious that I'm not walking with an open mind, because things just start getting messed up. And it's almost like, didn't I tell you? Right? I can be like the hard-headed child because I've always been hard-headed, and I've always walked in the space where if you are open to receiving messages, they're going to come to you. But there's one thing that I ask: make it an obvious message, because I'm not the kind of girl that like really looks for subtleties. Like I like to say that my kind of like the Wizard of Oz and the Yellow Brick Road. I need a yellow brick road. I need it to be real bright. Like, this is where you belong.
Right.
But sometimes I'm all up in the trees. I'm all up in the woods, like getting scarecrows. And nobody told you to make your journey that difficult, right? But I do think that when it comes to innately who I am as a person, it's my responsibility to find the people in the woods and take them to the yellow brick road, because people have put me on the yellow brick road and they make sure that I know where it is. They're always like, come here, girl. It's right there all the time.
And you're just doing reciprocity.
100%.
I received that 100%.
Because the road was paved for me.
I love the stories you tell. I love the journey that you've been on. But what is it that you're trying to get to at the end of this all? Like, I know, like, because this is called purpose, passion, and prosperity, and I see your purpose. I feel your passion. But what is prosperity for you? Like, what does that ring in your mind when
I love being able to create money and wealth, because that's how you get things done. I am nobody's fool. I think that I've seen so many people dedicate their lives to service, and they were not able to build any legacy for themselves or for their children, and that is not going to be me. For some reason, when it comes to Black people, we believe that asking, taking, and demanding our right to be compensated is wrong. I learned that a long time ago. That people have to pay for what it is they believe is worth, because we do it materialistically. I can't tell you how many people will come up to me and ask, can I pick your brain? Ma'am, I'm not an apple tree. You will not be picking. Now, when you go to the apple orchard, you have to pay, right? Oh, I don't have the money to pay. Okay, you don't? Well, I tell you what. I challenge you that you can afford me. No, I can't. Well, give me your bank statements and let me highlight where you put your purpose. And I'm going to show you how you put your need for me over your Louis Vuitton. You put your need for me over your Chick-fil-A runs. And if I show you all of this, and then for 30 days you're willing to sacrifice those things, I might give you a discount. But if you're going to pick from the apple tree, you got to pay at the cash register. And I think this whole thing of us, especially professionals, especially when you come from areas that are not areas of affluence, the community believes that they own you and that you are supposed to do something for free. Let me tell you.
Especially us.
That's what I mean.
But they're willing to pay every other.
Everybody else, they will pay. And I'll give you a quick story. We have a bakery. We have two bakeries. One is in downtown DC on 17th and K Northwest. This is not a commercial. This is facts. But if y'all want to come. And then we have another location in Baltimore. And it's on Ricerstown Road. My 17th and K customers, they walk in, they see the price. Oh my God, why is it so cheap over at the other bakery? I was like, Over at my location in Baltimore, I remember this woman. She was an older woman, and right next to me is America's Best Wings, and right next to that was CVS. She walked in with a CVS bag and America's Next Best Wings bag, and she came in, and she goes, $3 for a cupcake. Yes, ma'am. Well, where's the discount or something? I said, I'm sorry. Where's the discount? So my employer was like, oh, well, we could. Go in the back for a second. I said, ma'am, you are old enough to come out of the civil rights movement. And I had to lean in. I said, did you get discounts from America's Next Wings or whatever they call it? I said, that's the problem with us. I said, do you know when they brought us over here and they put us on the auction block, they set a price, and the way that we were paid for, they started with the discount? That doesn't bother you? That you walked in here, you got me on an auction block, and you're starting at a discount. Why can't I be worth the full price?
What did she say?
Well, I'm just saying, I just want discount. Digging in.
She ain't hear nothing.
I said, what I'm going to do for you, I'm just going to give it to you. But I hope that when I give you the cupcake, you also take the lesson. She took the cupcake and never came back again. And she wanted to call me some names.
Of course she did.
But the lesson was, historically, we've been discounted. And for some reason, we discount ourselves.
It's in our DNA.
I won't accept it.
I receive it.
So when we talk about prosperity from a financial perspective, how are we going to create value if we continue demanding discounts and saying that we're not worth our asking price? We can't do it. So I won't allow people that have that thinking to dictate my financial journey. I used to, but not anymore.
I receive it. I used to too, and now I'm on another page.
I'm not doing it.
No, because you learn, right?
I'm not doing it. And then when you do, and you do learn that when you do start to discount services, the people that you offered it to are the most difficult, and they cost you so much more in time.
And they want more. They start asking for more and more and more.
And then when you say, no, ma'am, I'm a Google review you, baby. Let me do it for you.
Right.
Let me give you a script to write, right? But let's be clear about it. I think that is just so innately ingrained in us, but it's not an excuse.
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's not.
Now you can hang your hat on it, but it is an excuse now for us to do it to each other, right? As if I cannot be in the marketplace and ask for market rates. But if it's a purse, we're okay with it.
Exactly.
If it's a shoe, we're okay with it.
Exactly.
If it's a lipstick, we're okay with it. But if I put myself out there, it's not okay. And that is not building prosperity. It's just not. But when we also talk about that part, it's also like the economics of the mind, right? What are we putting in our minds? How are we spending our time? What type of people are we around? What are we watching? What are we feeding ourselves, right? That's also a guide toward prosperity as well,
Absolutely.
Right? It's intellectual, it's the emotional intelligence, right? Mm-hmm. Where is that? So when you talk about all of those pillars of your organization, it's a beautiful thing, because if we can keep the conversation moving in that direction, then at some point we're going to control the narrative. And while we're not in control of it, we at least have an arsenal of information that people, when they are ready, they can tap into and see the work that you're doing and the work of your guest.
I love that. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would love to share?
You know what I think is always interesting? Okay, so I'm going to tell you this real quick. So I was at this event, and there's a bunch of men at the table at the bar, and I walked in and I knew all of them. And they said, April, who is it that you date? We don't never see you with nobody. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, first off, I don't want y'all. Because that's what you're really asking, sir, right? Sacrifices. So when you live a life of mine, there are sacrifices, right? And what I've sacrificed for 48 years is not being in a relationship, right? Because there is no time. So this life is very hard. It's never lonely, because I'm not a lonely person. I really like myself. I am hilarious. I am funny. And I have so many amazing friends. But in reality, there are sacrifices that you will have to give. And I see women in particular struggling because they're trying to have this family life, this boo thing life, this job, this entrepreneurship journey. And I'm like, something has to give. And in situations where we are not quiet and we're not being realistic, saying, listen, I already have a son, I have to pour into him. I already have a business, I have to pour into him. I was okay with being by myself for a long time. But that is a sacrifice. What some people do is they try and ignore that because they need to have someone, and their mental health becomes a sacrifice. That's not me. My dry dating life, but you could tell them that I'm ready now. Like, we could do a match.com. Fellas, but you got to be really tall. You cannot be short. Just to let you know.
Like Josh.
And they got to have all their good teeth, right? You need the important teeth to be there. We have to have values in place. But I laugh, but that's true. So I was at brunch today, and my friends are always trying to match make. And I asked my friends one time, I said, don't you think it would be selfish of me to just date someone and then they are not a priority? So they just sitting there waiting for them to be a priority. So with my journey, I understood that there would be many sacrifices. And that was the one thing that I decided could be sacrificed. It wasn't going to be my mental health. It wasn't going to be my spirituality. It wasn't going to be my finances. It wasn't going to be my child. But it was that, right? So I think that that's important for entrepreneurs to know, that it's okay to just focus on your entrepreneur journey, and that everything else will become in alignment when you're ready for it. But too much piling on will send you to the crazy house.
So You know that all the women out there listening are saying, what?
I know.
They're like,
how?
Right. Like, how can you sacrifice a mate in your life? Like, how could you do that? Like, what's wrong with her? You know, that's going to be the question. And what would you say to that?
I would say, what's wrong with you, girl? Like, how are you going to do it all? Okay. So, you know, and that's a good point. And I think that's because people are so afraid to be by themselves.
That's the point too.
I'm like, in quiet is where growth is. You cannot determine to bring someone into your life and you don't have them as a priority. It's just going to create conflict and it's going to take you off of your journey. Now, if that is important to you, have at it. But for me, it just wasn't. I am so honest with myself that it's to the point where you will know me when I walk in the door, be like, that girl already know her truth. And the truth is that I didn't want to have to deal with all of the nuances of being in a relationship because it's going to get my head out of the game. And I got a whole black son that I have to raise. That's where that time is going to go to. Because if I'm giving all of my time, 14 hours a day to companies and businesses, whatever I have is not going to take away from this black man that I have to raise.
I receive
right?
that.
And that's true. And you know, a lot of my entrepreneur friends who try it, they are miserable. They're chasing relationships that aren't chasing them back, right? They are accepting standards that are way beneath them just for the sake of saying, I have someone. I show up by myself and I leave with so many friends. It is a beautiful thing to be able to walk into a room and be free and create friendships and relationships that last forever. It's so much more rich than a temporary 6-month situation that's just going to be a lot to manage because I don't have the time or capacity to manage it.
So at some point you're going to retire.
Yeah.
How do you see that going?
I don't see myself retiring. I think retirement to me is scary. I was just like, so I'm gonna go to Florida and then do what? I just don't see myself retiring.
So
I love working.
So you're gonna work.
It's so fun. It's stressful, but it's so fun, right? Like, and you know, I think the scary part about retiring these days is because what we're eating, environmental issues, and it's been proven that when people are retired, dementia is creeping in faster these days.
Yeah, they don't last long.
Their bodies are breaking down. And I could never imagine waking up talking about, I'm going to go to another country. It's only but so much traveling. It's only but so much meditation. I'm here for impact. And that impact is not going to stop until they sprinkle my ashes amongst the cherry trees.
So we are going with cremation. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am. I'm scared. Just in case I wake up and start scratching at the coffin. Like, that's just a bizarre. I'm telling it too much.
So in case you wake up, you 6 feet under and you start scratching at the coffin.
So because I read a lot, I was reading something about awake. Like, what is awake, right? Because I've had so much death around me in the last 3 years. And I was reading something about awake, right? And they were saying the reason that they had awake was because back in the day when people would die, they would mistaken people that were in comas for death. So they would bury people and then they would reuse the coffin. And then when they would dig up the coffins, you see all these scratch marks.
Okay.
Weird. So then what they started doing, because this is point of education, weird education, they started putting in bells inside of coffins, and the bell would be connected above ground so that if you would wake up, then they
you can ring the bell.
So
okay.
For me, I was like, oh, hell no. So that's the way I came up.
So cremation is in the cards for you.
Just because of that. That's why, God made me special, because I be my mind. I was like, I'd be the only one, right, who's scratching it. So I said, just sprinkle me amongst the cherry blossom trees.
I received it. So I just never heard anybody say
don't edit it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely not. No, that's good stuff.
Yeah, so that's that's not the last thing I want to leave you with.
No scratching at the coffin. No, I hope.
Oh my goodness.
Well, is there anything else?
No, I just want to say thank you. I just want entrepreneurs or people that are out there to hear my story and be excited about possibilities.
Yes.
Right. But to also operate within their truth and to know it, and don't be confused by emotions, or don't, lean into this ultra truth that we are starting to gravitate toward, right? I want people to be okay, but I also want people to understand that the purpose for us to be here on the earth, you have to find it and you have to run toward it, because in all honesty, our time is borrowed.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, it's not about what they will think about you. It's, are you really maximizing your life? And I think if we really think about it, the answer is no. And the question that we all have to ask ourselves is, why not? And I'm on a journey to make sure that when I'm scratching at my coffin, I don't have to ask myself, why didn't I sprint through life?
And with that, we say thank you. And I say thank you, April.
Thank you.
It has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
It has been very insightful. And I believe so many people are going to be blessed by this conversation.
Thank you.
So thank you so much again for coming. Again, we are Purpose, Passion, and Prosperity. Until then, have an amazing day.